Hey, my beautiful people. Don't forget that this episode is sponsored by M3 Virtual Accounting. If you have a virtual business like an OnlyFans, a podcast, an art thing that you sell on Etsy, you need help getting your books straight. It's always a bigger pain than you expect it to be come tax time, and I am certain that future you will thank present you for going to M3 Virtual Accounting and setting up a free consult with Molly Morris. Molly will talk to you about your needs, figure out how she can help you and work with your budget. She has been a godsend for me, and I wish that I had signed up with her long ago. So go to M3 Virtual Accounting, set up a consult, and tell her I sent you.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, A Song of Ice and Fire 2. The co-host, Switcheroony, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO, spoiler edition. Uncut, uncensored, and maybe too hot even for a podcast? You tell me. Covering A Dance with Dragons. A Song of Ice and Fire, Book 5, Chapters 4 and 5, Bran and Tyrion. In these chapters, we've got two characters going, are we there yet? How about now? Are we there yet now? What about now? And the answer is always the same.
No.
Nope. Sure ain't. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
Okay, so tell me how you felt about these two traveling but not getting their chapters.
Well, we get a Bran chapter, and I was wondering when that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, after having that opening chapter with fucking what's-his-face.
Yeah.
It makes...
Varamir's Six Skins.
Yeah, it makes Bran warging into Hodor really difficult.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Especially because we even have Bran himself acknowledging how much Hodor doesn't like it.
Yep.
And it just is like, now I'm just like,
I appreciate that the way it's written is like, well, he's gotten to know me now, the boy liked to tell himself.
Yeah, like even Bran knows that this isn't,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe he shouldn't be doing this. I don't know if he understands yet on a real level why this is not really okay to do, but he has like a gut reaction. He knows somewhere that this is iffy at best.
Yeah, so we have like, there's a lot of weirdness happening because the thrust of this chapter is about the traveling and the fact that our friends are taking the word of this lifeless being.
Yeah, so they're traveling with cold hands,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't recall being part of the show, but I can't remember exactly. But I don't remember them spending an extended period of time with him.
I don't remember how much time. I know that, you know, they meet up with cold hands, but beyond that, I don't recall.
Yeah, I cannot remember. So I could be getting that wrong. But this idea that they are traveling with this man, right? Because it takes them a little bit to start acknowledging out loud that he's probably not a man anymore.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
But, and they have been with him for a while and they don't seem to be making any progress. Mira thinks that they're going in circles at this point. She's convinced that they have seen the same river multiple times. And it starts to breed a little bit of paranoia about who they're traveling with and can he be trusted? Because all they have is the fact that Sam was like, he helped me out.
Exactly. Yes.
And of course, the conditions they're traveling in are just the fucking worst.
Oh my
It's
God.
cold. It is like cold beyond description. They don't have any food left. Food ran out 10 days ago. And they're just, it's not a great situation they find themselves in.
Yeah. And we've also got Jojen, who is like not doing awesome and also not being willing to eat. He keeps saying like, I'll eat later when I feel better, but he's not ever feeling better. So it's sort of like,
Yeah, he's not looking well. At one point, Bran is like, this dude looks fucked up. And that's coming from me, somebody who is actually fucked up.
yes. Yeah. Bran's like, I'm looking real strong in comparison to this kid these days. That's not awesome. Uh-oh.
So yeah, that and I don't remember exactly if something happened to Jojen that I've forgotten, or if he's always been, kind of slight and fragile, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just the cost of this journey is starting to really weigh on him, is my understanding. He's just not sturdy enough for this type of fucking traipsing across the mountains that, in sub-zero weather that they've got going on.
Yes.
Like he wasn't built for this type of life. So he's starting to fade. And of course that has Mira very upset, and desperate to get to wherever they're fucking going. At one point she's just like, why couldn't the fucking three-eyed raven just meet us at the wall? Like, how come we got to go meet him?
That is a very good question, madam.
And all I could think when she said that too, it was like, well, that's because this motherfucker's a tree. Where is he going?
Mm-hmm. Like, whether or not that's the same situation in the book, she doesn't know that. And she's like, literally, I think says, crows fly.
Mm-hmm.
Come the fuck on, dude. Like, yeah.
And you know what? I'm not mad about it. It's the joke, the Lord of the Ring joke. Like, why didn't they just take one of those eagles to Mordor and call it a day?
Yep. Exactly.
But then what would we write 800 pages about if we did it that way? And I feel like that's what's happening with George.
Oh, Georgie. Yeah, there's okay, we're not doing it. So we start things off with the mention that nobody is talking anymore. Hodor keeps saying Hodor, and it's comforting because everybody is so damn quiet.
Yeah. There's something about these woods they're traveling in that just is different. Like, they noticed it as soon as they come out the other side of the wall. There is, they could have just said this shit is creepy as fuck, because that's really what is happening. There's a silence that feels like they would be wrong to disturb it. Like, they might wake something up if they talk too loud. You know that feeling?
Yes.
Where like nothing looks different, but all of a sudden you're just like, I need to whisper. This is a whispering kind of situation.
Yes. Yeah, there's a moment when they're like lighting a fire, and he had said something about how you don't want to do that because there is no telling what you are going to summon from the dark.
Right.
And Bran is like, even just thinking about him saying that is making the hairs rise on my neck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I keep forgetting that these guys haven't run into the whites.
Yeah, they haven't seen them yet, I guess, right?
Yeah. So there's a point later where it seems pretty clear that was what was coming for him. And Cold Hands handled that shit. He cold handled that shit. And
ma'am,
they are like, I can't believe you killed these guys. And I was like, are you idiots? And then I realized like, oh, they don't know still. They've been traveling north of the wall for a minute now. And they still haven't run into this like personally, which is remarkable.
Right.
I mean, that really speaks to me to Cold Hands doing his job really, really well.
Yeah, and that they are so unaware, and also that they like. I know he's not fully a white, but he's the fact that they don't seem to recognize that they could be traveling with somebody that's not alive.
Yeah,
is also like because they have not run into these fucking things yet. Like that's not really on their radar.
Yep.
And I can't remember if when they're with Sam, does Sam talk about having run into whites? Like his own experiences with them.
That's a good question.
I can't remember.
You would think it would have come up.
Like, how is that not the first thing you say? But, I honestly cannot remember. Maybe it's in all. I don't know if Austin has notes, or maybe somebody could. I'll never see it if you do mention it, but maybe you'll see it and then you can tell me.
I wonder if it's like, because here's the thing. I could understand being like, they're not going to believe me. I'm not going to tell them about the walking zombies that nobody is going to listen to me about. Mm-hmm. However, I have to then go, but sir, you're sending them north of the wall.
Right.
Even if they don't believe you, you really do have a responsibility to fill them in. You know what?
And it's really, it could go either way, because you had a reminder that these are literal children. Mm-hmm. And Sam could have been on some, I don't want to scare them.
That's interesting.
But I don't remember if he tells them or not. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that is easily Googled, or if that would just take you to a fucking 30-page essay about why Sam should have or should not have told them.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we can ask anybody to parse down that essay into a what's the word I want? Digestible, bite-sized bit. It'd be Austin, Arminio, Austin's Info Corner. Woo! So Austin, if if there's something that maybe was actually in the text that we forgot, go ahead and let us know. Appreciate you, man. So yeah, this whole energy is just full of dread, exhaustion, a sense of almost they aren't even really sure they're getting there at this point. They're moving forward because there's nothing else to be done. Which is really relatable.
And again, they're not even completely sure they're moving forward.
Yeah,
which is extraordinarily frustrating. When you are traveling and it's a difficult journey and you are not the one that is leading, you're not the one that's choosing the direction you're going in, you're having to follow someone that you don't know. Right? You're not even 100% sure you can trust them, but you have to follow them, because what else are you going to fucking do? And then you start looking around and being like, is this motherfucker even taking me where he said he was taking me? And I love your point that they don't really appreciate and understand what Cold Hands is doing to keep them safe.
Yeah.
So if they knew that would probably increase their level of trust. But since they don't, they're just like, where are we going?
And you know what? I'm sort of realizing maybe Sam didn't tell them, because then they would be like, yeah, so there's undead men, huh? Super weird how we don't see Cold Hands breathing. Mm-hmm. And you want us to just walk along with him?
Exactly. It doesn't seem to have occurred to them until we watch it in this chapter. Hey, isn't it weird that he doesn't seem to breathe? Why isn't his scarf all crusted? It took them a while to be like, hey. So I'm leaning towards Sam didn't say anything. But what I'm curious about now is, did Sam ever express to us why he didn't say anything? Did we get a moment of Sam being like, I'm not going to tell them that because I don't want to freak them out. I'm not going to tell them because they would never follow Cold Hands. I'm not going to tell them because that would dissuade them from this journey that they have to make. They would be afraid to make it if they knew what they were walking into. That's what I want to know. So yeah, Austin, let us know.
Yeah.
If any of that happened, did Sam ever express, what his thought was for not telling them everything that they were getting into?
All right. So, yeah, there's descriptions of a crust of frozen snot on Jojen specifically, but you really get the sense that everybody's got some frozen body
everywhere. Fucking Hodor's his eyebrows are all crusted, his beard is all crusted. It's no good. At one point, Mira takes her hood off of her head, and a giant clump of snow falls off because she's just walking around with a mound of snow on her head. Which makes no sense to me. Shake that shit off. What are you doing? Why are you walking around with a pile of snow on your fucking head. Like, not like take a hand and knock it off. What is happening?
Maybe it's insulating after a while.
That shit
Like-
is melting and just making her hood fuck. It's got to be like frozen solid on her head, you know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's also when you get like to a certain point, you don't notice it anymore.
I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are, which is somehow even worse.
So I also love the fact that Summer keeps kind of being like, ooh, this elk. I said elf. This elk smells so yummy. Are you sure I can't like just a little bite, just a little bit? And he keeps having to be like, no, the elk is friend, not food. So this is when Cold Hand says behind us, and Bran says wolves, men. The wolves still keep their distance. These men are not so shy. And Mira's like, oh, I'll come with you. And he's like, no, you will not. You are going to stay here and protect Bran, and you are going to go forward until you reach a fishing village. And like later on, like you said, Mira is saying, I feel like we crossed this same river. We're going in circles. But when they get to the fishing village, they clearly have not been here before.
Right.
This isn't recovered ground. So
I love how they almost missed the village too.
there is so much snow at one point when they're crossing over the frozen lake, because he tells them to like follow it that way. They are what?
Bitch. We spent all that time talking about Sam and the Whites, and the next page there's a line literally, the Rager saved Sam and the girl from the Whites, Bran said hesitantly.
Oh my God.
It's right here.
So why are they acting like they don't understand how he killed men with black cloaks on, who were like, they're like, those are your brothers or whatever. Then why are they acting like they don't know?
I don't know, because there is Bran remembering the tales from Old Nan, and he's thinking to himself that the Ranger wore the black of the Night's Watch, but what if he wasn't a man at all? And this is like as they're having the whole conversation about how they've never seen his breath. So, girl, I don't know. I can't call it.
So and they never noticed that he did.
It says Bran has been afraid to speak of it. So maybe they all had noticed it and just nobody wanted to say anything. Because Mira, in her frustration and her worries that she can't trust him and they're going in circles, she's just like, I don't like any of this. He's got too many secrets. I don't like him. I don't trust him. She starts talking about his hands and he hides his face. He won't tell us his fucking name. And she says, who is he? What is he? And then Bran thinks it's true. Bran had been afraid to speak of it, but he had noticed. Yeah, the man doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. And there's something else. And then they start talking about the scarf and how it doesn't seem like it has any moisture. It's not frozen. And they start talking about how they've never seen his breath. Yeah. So maybe they were just in a sort of all tacitly agreed we're not going to talk about the giant elephant in the room because we don't have any other options.
I guess. I don't like, okay, all right, sure. I mean, that's the only explanation that makes any sense. So I guess so. But it just, I don't know. It feels strange that there hasn't been, even inside Bran's head, the sort of like, is he a white though? You know what I mean? I don't know. Well, all right, fine. Everybody who's listening, I mean, I just listened to those chapters. This chapter I listened to last night, and then the Tyrion chapter this morning, and I did not remember that. So I'm really glad that you're reading through this and keeping track of this. I have recently had firsthand experience with what it must be like listening to the show sometimes, because there's a podcast I'm listening to that was covering The Exorcist, and I was telling you I was reading it, and this person, like, does this thing where they're reading it in text and highlighting it on their Kindle, but they're only highlighting a small portion because they think when they see that, it'll remind them of the part they want to talk about in full context. But then once they're recording, they don't remember the full context. So they read this tiny fragment out of context going, why did I highlight that? And then have to like piece together what was happening in that moment. And this guy is like trying to remember the name of this character and why this thing is happening. And he is like getting it so wildly wrong. And then he starts to like kind of go in the right direction with like, oh, I think that this was somebody that's like secretly alive, but this other person, I think it's his sister. And I'm like literally screamed in my car, it's his daughter, you idiot. I was so mad. And then like a minute and a half later, he's like, oh no, it's his daughter. And I'm like, fuck, thank you, Jesus Christ. Like I was ready to snap.
So is that what we're doing to people?
We are inflicting that on the world.
I feel so bad.
Listen, it's part of the experience. It's just part of the making and the consuming that you've got to accept. And I'm sorry for it, everybody. I know that it's probably causing your blood pressure to spike. I get it. And that's the only comfort I can give you is that I understand now. I understand now.
That happened to me when I was listening to a lot of Ted Lasso podcasts when it first came out before we decided to do one ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just get so angry. But it happens, guys. You know, we're out here just doing the best that we can do with what we have, and we appreciate your patience as we go through this difficult time.
That's really what it comes down to. It's just like, hey, thanks for you know, not hating us and deciding never to listen again to this. That's great.
And this is also when she's just like, why can't the crow fly to us? So yeah, they're heading towards this village and they start to get frustrated because there is nothing, and they're wondering maybe they fucking passed it. And it's getting late and they need to find shelter before it gets dark because they cannot just be out in the elements at night. This is not that kind of party.
Yeah.
And so Bran is like, oh, you know what? We should use Summer, which is a genius move. Like, why wouldn't you use the wolf as a scout? Like, of course, let's do this. And he has to remind Summer that the elk is not on the menu. And Summer runs and he does find it because he can smell. I love this bit too, where there had been Bran talking about the silence of the woods, right? And how dead everything was. Yeah. And then he slips into Summer's skin and it says the dead woods came to sudden life. And I just love that because there is a whole world that animals experience that we just simply cannot, you know? Yeah. And I love the idea that they're walking in this dead forest and then he's in Summer's skin and suddenly it's filled with life, with smells and sounds, and, you know, that the humans are just completely missing. And so he can smell the smell of man smells, which I don't love that. Man smell. Not my favorite thing.
Life comes at you fast, and with that life comes man smells. It's unavoidable. We do what we can to manage it. What can you do? It's so weird how like dogs just they don't have the disgust reaction. Everything is just information, and they regard it all at the same level of interest, unless it's food, in which case there is increased interest, but there's never disgust. And so they will just be sticking their noses anywhere. And it is extremely unwelcome sometimes, let me tell you. I am not interested in some of the insistence that Pippin has had at finding out more about me in extremely personal ways.
Don't like how any of that sounds.
Oh, you know what it's about.
I do. I had forgotten about it, and now it's back. You're forcing me to have to forget about it all over again. But yeah, so Summer picks up on these smells, and the rest of the party has to kind of like follow him, which they don't all do. So Bran has to like get back in his body and be like, yeah, we need to go this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the thing that I had been meaning that I started to say it, but then you let me know that we were talking out of our asses for 20 minutes. Was that when they're on that frozen lake, this got to me so bad. They cannot figure out how to stick to the shore, because that's what he told them to do, is like, follow the shore north or something. And it turns out there's so much snow that where the lake is and where the shore versus the land is, it's impossible to tell sometimes, because there are islands in the lake that have trees.
Right.
And then there's big swaths of land that are flat with no trees. And so everything just looks like each other. And that would just drive me nuts. Like, I don't know. There's something about the snow camouflaging everything when you are relying on certain milestones and visual markers. That is just really on top of everything, just cruel, Yeah,
agreed. That's the thing about like why they get so turned around thinking that, we've been here before, because you can't really mark your progress when you're in, that type of, that area with that amount of snow, like to not be able to tell how far you've traveled and in which direction that you're traveling has got to be not only frustrating, but really disorienting.
Yeah.
And then you add that on top of the conditions that they're moving in, which is not adequately clothed. They don't have adequate food source and all that shit. And it just, all of it sounds absolutely terrible.
Fucking miserable.
Like
man.
and it's funny, throughout these books so far, Tyrion is the only one who seems to know how to travel. And it's really not even Tyrion, it's fucking Illyrio who knows how to travel. Because everybody else, with Jon, with Daenerys, with, these motherfuckers are out there. It's hard.
Yep.
They are traveling in the worst way.
Okay, I'm gonna wait to talk about that till we get there, because I have a lot to say about that, as you would expect.
But eventually, yeah, they find this fishing village, thanks to Summer's help, and they get inside, and they decide to eat, and that's barely eating. It's like just acorns that they crush into a paste that it's like impossible to eat. It's so bitter. Jojen is not eating, like you said earlier.
I never had acorn. You ever had acorn?
I mean, I've had acorn squash, but I think it's an entirely different thing, right?
Yes, very much a completely different thing.
Then the answer is no, I have not.
Yeah. Just curious about it, because I know that it was like, it's an essential for a lot of people who are trying to forage and whatnot. And I think that even in the Hunger Games, she references like gathering acorns for stuff. But I don't think I ever knew that it was like super bitter. And I'm not sure if that's the standard or if it's like the acorns that they have access to just are really bad,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just curious. But anybody out there who's had acorn, let me know what you think about it, because I'm curious about it.
Yeah, well, they don't seem particularly excited about having it for dinner, I'll tell you that much.
They sure don't. Yeah. And as this is all going on, Summer is out there scouting things out and
making everybody his bitch.
Exactly. Yes. There's a whole fight. And it's an interesting thing where he thinks to himself, after like subduing them, a pack, like, this is my pack. And Bran has to be like, no, we have a pack, and it's just an interesting, like, would he have just kind of, I don't think he would have ditched them. Would he?
I mean, it seems kind of like it gets close, right? Like the idea that the instinct to be part of a pack is so strong that he needs Bran's will to keep him from just disappearing into the woods with his people, even though they're not people.
Right. Yes.
Is a really interesting question, because without Bran's influence and his ability to control him in this way, maybe he would have run off a long ass time ago.
It's an interesting question. I am kind of, I am curious, like in a vacuum, how this would have worked out. And also, this is One Eye. And when Summer looks at him, Summer recognizes that this is a warg. Now, I had thought that Varamir went into a bird. Did he jump out of the bird into One Eye? Or is what I'm realizing, that was the prologue of the previous book? So maybe Varamir isn't dead yet.
What do you mean?
Varamir Six Skins. He would always go into a wolf that he called One Eye.
Yeah, but you said it was the prologue of the previous book.
That was in the prologue of the previous book, and he dies in that prologue. So I'm coming into this thinking Varamir's already dead. But at this point with Bran, Varamir might still be alive. Because we don't know exactly how things line up. This is the very first Bran chapter.
So who's in the prologue of this book? I thought that was the prologue of this book.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the prologue of this book.
Oh.
Varamir is the prologue of the book.
So Varamir has to be dead then.
Mm-hmm.
So then he is in this wolf? Is that who Bran's fighting?
Let's see. Let's see. I went to the end of the prologue.
Because, I thought he went into a bird at the very end of that. And that he, looked down and saw the woman who had turned into a white.
I know people are, dying as we're doing this.
Yeah, I checked Austin's notes and I don't see that info. So I feel okay with it.
Yeah,
we don't know this.
It sounds like he went into the bird because things below moved but did not live. The last to look was the thing that had been Thistle, and she looks up at him. So yeah,
maybe he just moves. Maybe he can move from one to the other. I was thinking that since he's dead now, he has to pick, and that whatever he picks, that's it. But maybe that's not how it works. Maybe he can leave the bird and go into One Eye and jump around, jump up, and get down.
Yeah. Oh my God, girl. I'll have to. Yeah, I'm not sure what he ends up in. I thought it was something a bird too, from the way he writes about looking down on everything, but I can't remember exactly. All right.
Well, but just because it seems like that's pretty clearly who it is that he's running into here, right? So, yeah. But this fight, he wins it pretty handily. The pack was his, the prey as well. He went from man to man sniffing before settling on the biggest, a faceless thing who clutched black iron in one hand. His other hand was missing, severed at the wrist, the stump bound up in leather. Blood flowed thick and sluggish from the slash across his throat. The wolf lapped at it with his tongue, licked the ragged, eyeless ruin of his nose and cheeks, then buried his muzzle in his neck and tore it open, gulping down a gobbet of sweet meat. So yeah, he goes from one to the other and chews them down, and then this is his. They were his now. They were his pack. No, the boy whispered. We have another pack. Lady's dead, and maybe Grey Wind too, but somewhere there's still Shaggy Dog and Nymeria and Ghost. So we find out here that the ranger found a pig and he has brought it for them to eat. He does not eat himself, but that's a nice surprise.
Flames. Yeah. I mean, a pig. Where did you get a pig from in the middle of all this?
Where indeed.
But I guess we're not gonna give pigs in the mouth.
It might be a long pig, if you know what I'm talking about.
You know what? I thought about that. I was like, he's saying he found a pig, but it could just be any kind of meat, right? You just tell him it's pig. Don't worry about it. It's pig.
Don't worry about it.
They're so fucking hungry. What are they going to do? They're like, yeah, pig. All right.
Oh boy.
I mean, but I mean, but let's just pretend it really is Pig, right? For the sake of all of us.
I would really prefer that. Fully agree. Yes, let's pretend.
Yeah. And then this is when Bran is
The
just
less you know.
Bran is like starting a little bit of like, you killed your own brothers. How could you?
See?
And you used your ravens to do it also. Like the wolves ripped their clothes up, but I could still tell. And what about, and he says that their cloaks were black like your hands, and demanding, who are you and why are your hands black? And he looks at him for a minute, and then finally is just like, my hands are black, and tells them once the heart has ceased to beat, blah, 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 blah.
He flat out is like, because I'm dead. Duh.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, oh, we just gonna say it?
Apparently.
And Mira jumps up and is like, you need to show us your face. And Bran is just like about to throw up.
Yeah.
He's dead, he says. Mira, he's some dead thing. And then it says a bit about how the monsters can't pass so long as the wall stands. And that's what old Nan used to tell me. And he came to meet us at the wall, but he could not pass. So he sent Sam instead. And they're like putting all the pieces together. And it doesn't end up mattering at all.
Yeah.
Because the reality of their situation is they need him. They demand, like, who sent you? And who is this three-eyed crow? And the ranger says he's a friend, he's a dreamer, he's a wizard, call him what you will, but he's the last green seer, and he's who sent me. Bran is like, you're a fucking monster. And the ranger says, you're a monster, Brandon Stark, which is, he's using the whole government name, so you know he's serious.
Yes.
And they don't know what to do. And earlier when the ranger tells them to find the fishing village, there's a mirror is like trying to buck a little bit, and Jojen is just like, do what he says.
Yeah. And
in this moment, it's again, Mira asked her brother, did you dream this? Do you know what this is? What are we supposed to do? And Jojen is like, we go with the ranger. We've come too far to like go back. And we would never make it back to the wall alive anyway. So we go with Bran's monster or we die. And that's how that fucking chapter ends, with them realizing that they are following and traveling with something that is no longer human. And they are in a situation where they can't do fuck all about it. It doesn't even fucking matter. Yep. Which is wild.
Yeah. Okay. So here's, I was saying how I don't understand how they don't understand the situation, but I'm realizing the man, blood flowed thick and sluggish from the slash across his throat. If you are already a white, you don't bleed anymore. Right?
I mean, he says when he talks about what happened to him that once your heart stops, all the blood drains to your extremities and the rest of you becomes very pale white.
So I've been assuming
that he killed whites, but they might not have been.
Yeah, maybe they were just dudes.
Actual knights of the or men of the Night's Watch out this far ahead, this far north of the wall.
Maybe they were part of the group that like got separated from Sam. Like when we start the last book, we don't get any of Sam's POV in the last book, right?
Right.
So he has already reached Jon by the end of the book before that. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people were still out there and alive, I guess. So I don't know.
But then that begs a bunch of questions, because why would Cold Hands just kill Brothers of the Night Watch unless they were, I don't know, no longer honorary brothers? Like maybe they had went feral.
Maybe. I don't know. Like it's sort of, that's I don't know what to think about that. Like what happened there? I am so curious now. Is it possible that they were like wildlings that stole Night's Watch clothing.
Could be.
And he was able to tell that somehow. I don't know how he would, but
what does Summer say about eating it? Because would the wolves eat whites?
I don't think so.
I
And
feel
that's
like
kind
they
of the
wouldn't
part
either,
of,
right?
yeah.
Trying
I do not know.
Trying to flip to where Summer first fights the wolves and then gets what he smells when he first sees them.
Because I feel like Summer wouldn't have been drawn if they wouldn't bleed. What attracts Summer to prey is the smell of blood, and whites don't have that smell anymore. They smell like cold and rot.
Mm-hmm.
So that really wouldn't work.
And you know what else? Their beards are crusted with ice and frozen snot. So if they were whites, they wouldn't have that because they wouldn't be breathing.
I mean, they might just still have that from when they were alive.
I feel like the fact that this detail is included right after we have Bran and them being like, Cold Hands doesn't have any frozen snot. I feel like that's
fair.
You know,
yeah,
why that detail is included.
Yeah,
I don't know. Indeed.
Yeah, I am really not. Yeah. Okay. Well, a lot more questions being raised here then. Don't know what to think about that.
Yeah, and he has no interest in telling them why he killed them at all. He doesn't address.
No, he doesn't explain
whatsoever.
himself.
He explained, he's comfortable telling them that he's dead, but not comfortable telling them why he killed those men.
Yeah, it's an interesting, just not shying away from, I killed them, and I'm dead, and I am a monster. I'm your monster. But beyond that, there's no feeling of obligation to enlighten them about the rest of the circumstances of anything.
Right.
Which is kind of remarkable. You've got to be pretty sure they are not going to ditch you because they can't, to be comfortable just telling them the truth about all of that. But I guess
I got questions now too.
Right? Yeah. I don't know. I just really don't know how to interpret what went down here. And I'm trusting his judgment that they needed killing for no other reason than, well, he seems like a good guy. He seems, you know what I mean? I've got nothing to support this other than my gut instinct of
we've got basically all Bran's got, which is Sam said he was helpful. That's literally all we had.
Yeah.
And he did save Sam. We did see that happen. So we know that he did that. So it suggests that he's a, quote, good guy.
Man. Well, all right. Yeah. So, we go with the ranger, said Jojen. We've come too far to turn back now, Mira. We would never make it back to the wall alive. We go with Bran's monster or we die. And then we go to Tyrion. And Tyrion gets a bit of a history lesson, a tour of points of interest. There's a lot happening here in this chapter that is sort of not immediately relevant, but potentially relevant eventually.
Right. Yeah. We get just a lot of background. We get an interesting story about Varys, right? We find out that they knew each other when they were quite young, and that Varys was a thief, and Illyrio in his younger days was pretty handy with a sword, turns out.
Yeah.
And became Varys's protector. And then we also learned that, it starts out with Varys just being sort of like a petty criminal, and then realizing that information and secrets are more valuable than stealing people's gems and gold. And eventually he becomes so good at this that he catches the attention of a certain king who turns out was starting to worry that his hand was getting a little too uppity. So that's a nice little tie-in to King, was it Aerys and Tywin. Also, him,
Uppity.
him. Steve called me uppity while we were at the hospital in front of a nurse, and and I just laughed so hard. I'm like, that's a private joke. You can't just be saying that in front of people.
Oh, that is really funny, though. That's like when I was in front of Owen's grandparents and he did something that pissed me off and I just blurted out, "I will stab you in the heart." And his grandparents were like, "What the fuck?" And I had to just say, "What? He likes it." And I was right.
But what was I going to say? Oh, he tells Tyrion the sort of story of Daenerys as well. And we get one other thing that I really enjoyed, which was Tyrion remembering a time when for his birthday all he wanted was a dragon, and being told that they had been dead for hundreds of years and they would never be back, and it upsets him so much he cries himself to sleep.
Poor little baby Tyrion.
Yeah.
I really that thing of like being a kid and just taking whatever you read at face value and then getting like, you know, the real life lowdown from somebody later.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a real thing, you know, finding out shit just doesn't work like that. That's not actually how that goes. I had that a lot as a kid because I just really was willing to accept whatever a book told me. I had that sweet little, oh, of course it's real because it was published, which means it must be true because there are rules. Like I had this idea that you weren't allowed to publish things that weren't true.
If it's in a book, it must be true. If it's written down and published, it must be true.
Tragic. So they're heading out on this like long journey at a snail's pace.
Oh my God, they're moving so slow, and they're trying to get all the way to Volantis. I think it is quite the trek, and this shit is moving slow as fuck. Plus he's got this whole, I'm really glad he's got a whole train of like supplies and provisions that they're dragging along with them. And there's
no waiting till we get to the next quick trip for this guy. He has got a whole Whole Foods that he's just carting along behind him for the convenience of it.
I also really love the inclusion that they have to keep stopping because he has to keep pissing.
Yep.
So this incredibly slow process is going even slower because he has to stop every 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. And as a middle-aged woman, all I can say is same. Any trip with me, be prepared. I can't believe I didn't make you stop to let me go to the bathroom on the trips back and forth to Dallas from the airport into the show.
That's true because that's a long ass drive.
I just didn't drink any water.
We were both so fucking dehydrated. We were a mess. Oh, both of us. But I was sort of wondering if this was meant to be like a hint that he's diabetic or something, because I know that can be a symptom. Peeing all the time and being like excessively thirsty.
I don't know.
But you know, I have no idea if that's something that I'm reading into, because you know, George will do that sort of thing. He'll just drop a little like, oh yeah, there's a whole other little thing going on here and it's not important, so I'm not going to dwell on it, but if you're paying attention, you may put it together.
Well, I mean, he's drinking all the time.
It's true.
So it could be a lot of different things, or it could just be that he's drinking all the time.
Yes. And you guys, I just love you. Unsurprisingly, I just love how hard this man goes with fucking packing every conceivable like treat, sweet meat. There's all kinds of wild shit here that I've never had that I'm like, I don't like the sound of, but I kind of do.
Out like a jar of garlic snails.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, was the garlic snails. Because a big part of me is like, ugh, snails. And another part of me is like, well,
garlic.
And probably like packed in butter to keep it like a confit would be, you know. I don't know.
Yep. And they're traveling in like this litter that has like silk pillows and there's cushions everywhere. There's the walls are velvet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it is cozy in there despite the chill in the air outside. There are all kinds of different wines and ales and snacks. Like you said, there's ham and boiled eggs and roasted various types of birds and like this sounds like this is the best travel arrangement we have seen, in my opinion, throughout the series, the entire series, even including Robert's trek to Winterfell in the very first one. Like this is unmatched.
Agree.
He's got all the comforts that you would need and want, and I wouldn't mind going at this slow pace myself if things were this comfortable. Why am I in a hurry?
This is sort of like where I keep I hate traveling. So my instinct is to just like get it over with, just do it as fast as possible. But if it's like this, but then I also think, how many times have I packed excessively? Like for an event, I've made too much food. For a picnic with Owen, I brought too much stuff. And I bring all this with all these like grand ideas about how we're going to have this lovely meal. And then I have like 4 bites and I'm full. And I'm just like, I can't, oh my God, there's so much left. What are we even going to do with the rest of this? So I keep thinking about how gross I might feel. It would seem on the outside like this is great. And then in practice, I'm like, I don't know. But I can't help but think I'd like to give it a shot and see.
I would definitely be down to I feel like I'd be very comfortable and I'm rarely ever in a rush to get anywhere. So, and they're going to Volantis, but they're also meeting up with this guy that Tyrion is going to be traveling to see Daenerys with, this guy named Griff.
Yes.
Who is completely new to me, right? I have no idea who he is, and there was not a Griff in the show. Like in the show, Tyrion travels with Jorah.
Correct. Yes.
So I guess that's not how this works, unless Griff turns out to fucking be Jorah and he's just using a different name for reasons. I don't know. I guess
I'll just go ahead and say that's not
Thank God.
what it is. No, Griff is a whole different character who is not on the show.
So this is exciting because that means this is going to be a story that I don't know anything about. So I always get excited when that pops up. And Tyrion asked about the Stone Men and if that's like a real deal. And it turns out, yes, that is actually a real thing. But Illyrio is just like, but who wants to discuss such unpleasantness? And you know what? I say that like in a mocking tone, but also, yes.
Yeah.
Who wants to discuss such unpleasantness? I don't want to discuss it anymore.
Yeah, I definitely wish that I had that foresight because I'll just find myself down a really sad conversational track and then be like, oh God, why am I here? Get me out of here.
Same. And I love too that there's a bit where Lyra is talking about Daenerys and he first has to, because Tyrion is just like, all right, well, we're in this long ass trip together, so I'm going to try to get some information from you, right? So he's asking a series of like very probing questions throughout this whole journey. One of the first things he asks him is, so what's up with you being from Pentos, giving a fuck about who's on the throne in Westeros? What's all that about? And Illyrio tells him that, there had been a Viserys, and he has to tell Tyrion about that whole deal. And I loved that he's just like, he was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And he tells us that Viserys had been like gonna go rape Dany and that he had guards staked outside. So that's why that didn't happen, which
and he wasn't going to do it until after they had promised her to Drogo. And he decided that if you're going to force me to give up my little sister, who I desperately want to fuck, I'm definitely going to fuck her before you steal her away from me.
Yes.
And that is, like, we knew he was gross, but, like, that just makes that whole fucking, the fact that he died, make me just like, yeah, he was right to die.
Exactly.
It was the right thing to happen.
Yes, agree. Hard agree. Ugh, he's so gross.
Yep. And he says Illyrio is just like, Viserys was, the Mad King's son. Like, and I mean that completely. Like, everything you think I mean that I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. He was just as fucked up in the head as his father was. But the daughter, she's very, very different. And Illyrio is thinking, like, the little girl that I hid this is not who she is anymore. This is a whole different bitch now. And she is a true Targaryen. And he's into it. Illyrio is really like into the idea of her ruling.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, in my opinion, ever really say why, except that, she should be ruling because she's a Targaryen. And he seems impressed by the breaking of the chains, but Illyrio is also a slaver himself, so I don't feel like he's particularly moved by that in a like a moral sense. You know what I mean?
I can't believe that you would imply that when slaving is illegal, and he would never break the law. This man of honor. How dare you impugn him so, madame? I resent it.
But yeah, he doesn't really give Tyrion a straight answer.
No.
But he does admit that Viserys had promised him that when he took the throne, he would make him master of coin. And that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, he said I could have Castle Rock too. And Tyrion's like, excuse me? And he's like, don't worry, I don't fucking want that shit. My house is way better than yours.
I love that so much. I don't want your fucking drafty ass castle.
Yep.
But that master of coin job, that'd be all right. And he says to Tyrion, I'm fond of coins. Is there any sound as sweet as a clink of gold on gold? And Tyrion thinks a sister's scream.
Tyrion is so emo right now. It is out of control.
It really is. It really is.
Get a hold of yourself, sir.
Oh my God. So then here he tells him about Varys and all that jazz. I like too that they called his little people his mice, and Tyrion is like, in King's Landing he had little birds.
Yeah.
And then there's just more wine, more food, and more of Tyrion just being like, where the fuck are we and when are we going to get here? Like, what the fuck, dude? Why are we not making any progress whatsoever?
And Tyrion, there's a couple of moments where Illyrio is like, oh, don't worry, because like when they first set out, he's like, we're going to have to send you out the back gate because nobody can know that you were here and nobody saw you come, so nobody can see you leave. And Tyrion's like, except for like all your servants and the guys on the ship who cleaned up after me and sealed me into the cask. He's like, there's a lot of people
the woman you sent to fuck me.
Yeah.
What about her? And Illyrio's just like, no. My household staff, they don't break. You don't got to worry about them whatsoever.
And Tyrion is just like, all right, keep telling yourself that, sweetheart. And he keeps having moments like this where Illyrio, like, I think with young Griff, he says something about how, like, I trust him as I would a brother. And Tyrion is like, another fucking dumbass mistake on your part, I guess.
Yep.
And it's interesting, like, is he correct or not? Like, I don't know enough to tell, you know?
Right, yeah. I don't know anything about, like, we know that Griff is a sellsword, which sort of suggests that maybe you can't trust him. You know what I thought was interesting is when the conversation of Griff comes up and that he's a sellsword and all that shit, I thought for sure Tyrion was going to make a joke about Bran. You know?
About him just like
having had a sellsword in your employ that you trusted, that you paid well, and then like kind of being low-key sold out. Even Bran didn't actively participate in the selling out of Tyrion, but he also didn't do a single thing. Like, not that there was anything he could do, but he definitely was just like, oh, it sucks to be you, bro.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, it was very much a I mean, I got what I'm here for.
You
We had
know,
a deal, and
right?
that's about as far as that can go. So sorry
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah, but maybe it would have been too on the nose. But I thought for sure Tyrion would be like, "Yeah, I've done this before." But yeah, Tyrion's not impressed with the idea that this Griff person is just a sellsword because he's just like, I don't know if you've heard, but my head is super, super valuable.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you're hip to the news, but I have a sister and she's like really upset with me.
Hip to the news.
Um,
I'm rewatching Frasier, and I just got to that episode where Niles guests on the show,
oh,
and
yeah.
when he's introduced, this is my brother, Dr. Niles Crane. Hello, Seattle. What's doing? What's happening? Oh god, that has been like, for some reason, you know how phrases will just lodge themselves in your brain and replay, and that's just been going over and over in my head. What's doing? What's happening? So yeah, do you know what's doing? What's happening back in Westeros? Because I don't think so.
And this Tyrion asks a little bit more because Illyrio is just like, no, I know this man and I trust him with my life. And Tyrion presses a little bit. And because Tyrion is like, I heard the Golden Company was working for so and so, and Illyrio is just like, well, contracts can be broken. And he asks, how did you pull this off? And all Illyrio will say is that some contracts are written in ink and some are in blood, but I'm not going to say anymore. And that's it. That's all he'll give. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. But, and then we get a little bit of a backstory about the, about some of these sellswords. I think explicitly it's the Golden Company that we find out about.
Yes. I feel like we kind of skipped over
We might have
the history of Viserys and the way that went. Did we like talk about that? Because, you know, we had the thing with like, oh, well, we called them mice, but the whole way that things got started was that like they both lived on the street originally, and there were a lot of people who would steal, and Varys had figured out who was stealing and get their shit back, and then he teamed up with Illyrio, and they would tell people who had been robbed, we can get your shit back for you and take a fee. And he would supply them with what was stolen from them, to the point that eventually thieves would just steal and bring the stuff directly to Varys for him to buy back from them. Which I don't know why that is so funny to me, but that cracks me the fuck up. Just the idea of just being like, let's just cut out the middleman here. We don't need him. Like, but yeah, he was the Prince of Thieves until a rival thief informed on him. In Pentos, his accent marked him, and once he was known for a eunuch, he was despised and beaten. Why he chose me to protect him, I may never know, but we came to an arrangement. Varys spied on lesser thieves and took their takings. I offered my help to their victims, promising to recover their valuables for a fee. Soon every man who had suffered a loss knew to come to me, while the city's footpads and cut purses sought out Varys, half to slit his throat, the other half to sell him what they'd stolen. The older thieves were fools who thought no further than turning a night's plunder into wine. Varys preferred orphan boys and young girls. He chose the smallest, the ones who were quick and quiet, and taught them to climb walls and slip down chimneys. He taught them to read as well. We left the gold and gems for common thieves. Instead, our mice stole letters, ledgers, charts. Later, they would read them and leave them where they lay. Secrets are worth more than silver or sapphires, Varys claimed. Just so. I grew so respectable that a cousin of the Prince of Pentos let me wed his maiden daughter, whilst whispers of a certain eunuch's talents crossed the narrow sea and reached the ears of a certain king. So yeah, I just find this really fascinating, the way that they managed to like work the underworld so that they're like, what they could do was well known enough, and they were managing everything well enough that they could be notorious and still continue to get away with it, and still cash it in for respectable lives. You know, I just think that's really a kind of talent that I can't imagine having.
I mean, yeah, it's a real, like, some people just know how to work the system to their advantage in coming from like nothing, right?
Yeah.
And being able to see something that you can exploit to your benefit. Some people just have a nose for that, and I am not one of those people.
Yeah.
Those and then people like this do manage to rise through the ranks, or status, climb up from the depths, and end up in positions of respectability and power, with very, very shady backgrounds. I mean, you could just a very, very quick Google search of any of the big family names, at least in the States,
Yeah.
you find out, like, you go back a couple generations to the first person in their family that hit it big, and you see what they were into, and you're just like, oh, y'all was fucking running liquor, y'all
Yeah.
was liquors, and now you're like the royal family of the United States, and you did it in a lifetime. In one generation, you did that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. So sorry, we got to this part. Tyrion crept across the pillows to work it loose from its fleshy prison and pour himself a cup, because the magister had the wine jar at his elbow. There's something about calling it a fleshy prison that I was like, oh God. So let's see. If the Lord of Cheese could be believed, the Mad King's daughter had hatched 3 living dragons. Tyrion was almost sorry he had killed his father. He would have enjoyed seeing Lord Tywin's face when he learned there was a Targaryen queen on her way to Westeros with 3 dragons.
No shit, right? I would have loved for him to live to see that shit too. I really, really would have. My God, the satisfaction of seeing his face when he saw fucking dragons flying over to King's Landing. That would have been amazing.
So he wakes up with a terrible hangover and is instructed to have more wine, a scale from the dragon that burned you.
Right.
And Tyrion says, I dreamed about the queen. I was on my knees before her, swearing my allegiance, but she mistook me for my brother Jaime and fed me to her dragons. And Illyrio's like, ooh, we're just gonna hope that wasn't anything. And, I trust that you are as clever as Varys has said you are. So we're just going to have to bank on that. And Illyrio says that he's going to send Tyrion in his stead. He isn't going to go see Daenerys.
Yeah, Tyrion wants to know, why not you? Like, you're very smart. You could go and fucking counsel her as well as I could. And he's just like, yeah, no.
Yeah, Illyrio, she will make good use of you. As kindling, Tyrion thought, smiling pleasantly. I like that.
I also like that Illyrio is like, once you tell her that you killed your own dad, she's going to love that. Because you really fucking did her a solid.
Which I'm really curious about that, because, like, I know what he means, and he did do Daenerys a solid, but she is not the type to look favorably on that sort of behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking kinslaying, right? That's
yeah.
I mean, even though she wasn't raised in Westeros, I don't know if that's a Targaryen. I don't know what the word is. Value, I don't know if that's a thing that they have, or if it's just sort of more of a Westerosi thing. But I agree. Daenerys would be like, you killed your father. How can I trust you?
Yeah.
How do I know you won't turn on me?
Indeed. So as they resume their journey, Illyrio produced a bag of roasted chestnuts. Like, this man is just pulling snacks out from everywhere. It's just like he's conjuring them from the ether. I wish I had this power.
No shit. And this is when he's just like, you know what? I'm going to be honest. We don't really have any new news. We haven't heard anything in a while.
Yes.
And then he assumes, I love this, by now she will have left Marine. We must assume. Well, it turns out, sir.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's assuming that she's already left Marine, that she has her host. and that they are probably like just ready now to start moving west. And that when Tyrion gets to Volantis, he will get new news. He'll get fresh tidings, he says. And that he says dragons and young girls are both capricious. Capricious.
Yeah.
And it may be that you will need to adjust your plans. But don't worry, Griff will know what to do. So yeah, again, putting a lot of stock in this Griff guy to be able to decide like what their next movements are going to be. And I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, and this is when Tyrion is just like, you're trusting this guy a lot.
Yeah.
And how did you convince the Golden Company to take up the cause of our sweet queen when they have spent so much of their history fighting against the Targaryens? Black or red, a dragon is still a dragon. When Maelys the Monstrous died upon the Stepstones, it was the end of the male line of House Blackfyre, and Daenerys will give the exiles what Bittersteel and the Blackfyres never could. She will take them home. So we talked about Maelys the Monstrous a while back, but do you remember that this guy had like a second head?
I do not.
A very weird, very small second head, like the egg split and he was going to have a twin.
Oh.
But it didn't quite work out that way.
Do not remember that at all.
Yeah, it was like the size of a child's fist.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Wait, that's right. Oh.
And he was otherwise like huge, like way bigger than normal and way stronger than normal.
He's got the body of two people.
The way he kills Daemon Blackfyre, he allegedly like ripped his head off literally from his body.
Jesus Christ. So he's
yeah.
like fucking like the mountain.
Yeah. Similar energy. So, and he was killed by Barristan Selmy. So then we have Tyrion wondered what Barristan would think of riding into the battle with the Golden Company. During the War of the Nine Penny Kings, Selmy had cut a bloody path through their ranks to slay the last of the Blackfyre pretenders, which is Maelys. And he has a dream like later on that he is killing his brother, but he has two heads and the other head is weeping.
Yeah. That makes more sense now because I was like, whoa, what kind of
right?
dream is that? But okay, now I see where that came from.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is Andalos, the land your Andals came from. They took it from the hairy men who were here before them, cousins to the hairy men of Ib. And this is sort of like Mount Olympus. It's like the vibe, this is where the gods
right,
have walked.
Yeah, this triggers a memory for Tyrion of something he learned when he was young. And he recites that the Father reached his hand into the heavens and pulled down 7 stars, and one by one he set them on the brow of Hugor of the Hill to make a glowing crown. And Illyrio is like, word? Mm-hmm. You pious?
There's something almost like, oh, like about the energy here. Just a kind of, I didn't know that it was going to be like this.
Tyrion is like, whoa. Don't get excited. I just happened to remember that shit I learned when I was a little kid. But he does mention that there was a period in his youth where, because he knew he could never be a knight, he had decided that he would be High Septon. And that is really funny when we know like just how debauched Tyrion is.
Yes.
That he was going to fucking like be a very holy, devout man. And
there was a time where like that being a priest or a monk was the only option if you weren't somebody who wanted to like go to battle. You had your two options. It's like women not so long ago with like you either got to be a teacher or you got to be a nurse.
Yep. And he says that he had wanted to do this until he reached a certain age and he fell in love. Yeah. And then he realized that pussy's actually what I really like.
Go ahead.
This prompts Illyrio to share his story of love. And so we had already heard that he married, the prince's daughter or whatever. But he tells a story here of a woman that he met in a pillow house, and she was so lovely and he fell for her so hard that he took her home to be his personal bed warmer, but he ended up marrying her. And that cost him some of his standing socially. It says the palace gates were closed to me thereafter, but I didn't care. The price was small enough for her. And Tyrion just says, how did she die? Because and it says, Tyrion knew she was dead because no man spoke so fondly of a woman who had abandoned him. And we find that a trading galley on her way back from the Jade Sea, and it brought the plague with it. And not only did she die, but like thousands of people died.
Yeah. Yeah, and they showed up and everybody knew they were infected, so they like killed all of the people. But the fucking rats swam to shore and just fucked their shit right up. Which that is rough, man.
And that's what'll do it.
And part of me is like, wow, they just killed all of the infected people, but also they were like probably nearly dead anyway. You know, it was probably just a matter of time for all of those. But yeah, that's so like, it's such a weird story because, you know, I found her at a pillow house and I brought her home, and it's very Pretty Woman, but also in Pretty Woman, she's actually in love with him back. And I just wonder about this girl being like, I mean, I guess I would have been getting paid to fuck him before, and this is at least like the lady of the manor, so I guess that's a step up. All right, sure, why don't we do it this way? Like, I just always wonder what it was like for the women in those situations. Or maybe she was in love with him, you know, what do I know? But it just, the sense of it is something like story like, and when you think about what the reality was, probably it is not so much. I don't want to fall into the Sansa trap. Which is where I'm close to doing. So
I do think it's interesting that he never says anything about her love for him. Even when he's recounting the story, it's all about how he felt about her.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, kind of telling. You know? But let me see. So where are we at? Oh, it just makes Tyrion think of Tysha, of course, because everything does.
Everything does. The shade.
And he thinks of another passage from the Seven-Pointed Star, and then they start talking a little bit more about. He says something about the smith wrought a suit of iron for all the warriors, and Illyrio says, "Your smith must have been Roynish, because the Andals learned the art of working iron from the Roynar who dwelt along the river. This is known." And Tyrion is like, not by our septons.
Yeah, that's a tale as old as time, right? Well, we have an explanation for no, you don't. It was a miracle.
That just really made me laugh.
So in Tyrion says, we have seen no town since Pentos. There are ruins. The horse lords come this way whenever some cow takes it into his head to gaze upon the sea. The Dothraki are not fond of towns. You will know this even in Westeros. Fall upon one of these Khalasars and destroy it, and you may find the Dothraki are not so quick to cross the Rhoyne. It is cheaper to buy off foes with food and gifts. If only I had thought to bring a nice cheese to the battle on the Blackwater, I might still have my nose. He is so salty.
He says fucking to Illyrio, if you give gold to a foe, he will just come back for more, my father always said. And he says, is this the self-same father that you murdered?
Advice couldn't have been that good, son. Seems like that just, didn't work out. Right, for him in the long run, so whatever.
How are you gonna quote somebody that you murdered? Like you're in a debate. Like, oh, I'm gonna slam down my ace card. You can't do that. Yeah, Illyrio is actually pretty delightful. I can't lie.
I really enjoy him a lot.
Yeah, he's fun to read. But then they circle back to talking about Griff, and once again Illyrio is talking about how this man is just different from what you would expect of other sellswords, right? And he's like, and then to prove it, or to give an example of this, he's like, he's got a son, and he just dotes on him like nobody's business. You'd never met a finer young man. And I was just like, if you're going to try to convince somebody that that you're setting them up with is trustworthy and has a bit of like, I don't know, loyalty or whatever, and you're like, well, they've got a kid. I don't know if I'm convinced. I'm really not. I don't know if it does it for me. I don't know if it works for Tyrion or not, but it doesn't. I'm not moved.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm just not. Lots of people have kids. Tywin had kids.
Oof.
Cersei got kids.
No one would have ever called Tywin doting, though.
That's true. That's true. But Cersei dotes.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know why that cracked me up so bad. You know, do you dote? I dote occasionally.
I've been known to dote. So yeah, this is when he dreams about having two heads, and one of them is crying as he's murdering Jaime. And he wakes up the next day and it's just like, are we there yet? No, you are not there. And Lyra has said, we haven't even left the Flatlands yet, dude. Like, it's going to be a minute. And then we get a little bit more background about the city. This Goyen Drohe. I don't know.
What now?
Goyen Drohe is
I think that is it. Yeah.
That they're climbing towards.
Yeah.
And it's explained that this had been a city, a Rhoynar city, until the dragons destroyed it. And then it's just like him waking up and going to sleep, looking out the little windows and being like, Jesus fucking Christ, are we making any progress at all?
Yeah.
And it feels like they're not.
It's a crawl.
It really feels like they're not going anywhere. And then finally they come across this huge Valyrian Sphinx. And it's like, first of all, it's something to see. I imagine for Tyrion, even though he kind of plays it down, I feel like he probably was really excited to see this.
I think he was impressed. You know? Yeah.
And Illyrio's like, her king is missing. If you see that, I don't know if you want to make anything of that, but I'm just going to say, it's missing. And he tells them that the horse lords took the king away and dragged him back to Dothrak.
I really enjoy the idea that they're just like, oh, you know what? This is nice.
Mm-hmm. But why wouldn't you take the set?
Because who cares about women? Am I right?
I guess that's what it comes down to, right?
Yes.
Who cares about the women? And Tyrion is just like, that's because he had said that's an omen when they first see it, and he, the Dragon Queen, and then when he realizes that the king is missing, he's like, that's an omen too, but not as hopeful. And this makes him sing another song. Later on that night, he got like a little bit drunker than usual and starts to sing. And he sings this song. He rode through the streets of the city, down from his hill on high. Over the winds and the steps and the cobbles, he rode to a woman's side. For she was his secret treasure. She was his shame and his bliss. And a chain and a keep were nothing compared to a woman's kiss.
That's the song that guy sang that Tyrion had him put into a bowl of brown for. What was his name? Simon? Was it Simon? I feel like that was Simon.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. It's probably better than mine, actually.
I don't know about that. But yeah, so that's that chapter. It ends with he kept remember the first time with Taisha as well. She did not know how, no more than I did. We kept bumping our noses, but when I touched her tongue with mine, she trembled. Wherever whores go, Lord Tywin said, and the crossbow thrummed. Yeah,
he closes his eye to try to picture her face and instead sees his dad sitting on the toilet and relives that last moment again.
So rude.
Yeah.
Trying to see your beloved's face, and instead it's your dad on the toilet. Like, come on!
Right before you murder him.
It's just God. So yeah, that's the end of that. So what do you think?
I enjoyed. I really do like Illyrio. Like I said, I enjoyed this chapter. I don't know how much like, I don't know if I want a bunch of chapters of this long ride,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have any sort of impatience as I was reading this one, which was surprising because sometimes when you're reading and it's just taking forever to get to where they need to be for the plot to move forward, it can get a little
Yes.
like, oh, let's get on with it. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel any of that with this chapter, but I don't know how long he can sustain that. You know what I mean? If there's too
Very
many
much
more
so.
chapters like this, I'll probably get a little annoyed. But for this time, I really enjoyed this chapter.
Yeah, I really I think it just makes all the difference depending on what kind of character you're dealing with, like how clever they are and how like frustrating the situation itself is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a big dialogue girl. I really, really enjoy good dialogue and prefer that kind of content to like a history of things being sort of outlined by the author themselves in an expositionary way.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of world building has its place, but I am always way more interested in understanding the characters, and their dialogue tells you a lot about them and the way that they see each other.
Right.
So
And
that's
putting
always
these two together is really
yeah,
good, right?
you
It's
know,
like Varys and Tyrion are always good together, and this has got a lot of that same energy. Illyrio is a Varys, not necessarily a Varys-like character, but he's on that level of like how smart he is, how cunning he is, and how to talk to people in a way that you're only giving them the information you want them to have, but you do it in such a way that you disarm the person normally. And Tyrion is smart enough to play along like he's being disarmed, but in his head he's like,
yeah, that's exactly.
Making little notes here and there. So yeah, I enjoy them together a lot.
That's so true. Just like Tyrion just nodding and going, yeah, sure, I definitely am buying all this bullshit you're selling me. Okay, we'll just say that then, I guess.
Yeah, because he's at his mercy. He's got
completely
leverage. He's got zero leverage, and it's the same lack of leverage that basically Bran and them have, as much as they might be disgusted by whatever it is that Cold Hands actually is, how little they trust him. They got no leverage. They got no options. This is it. This is the fucking thing. So, watching how the different ways that Tyrion handles his situation versus the sort of frustration and outright anger and expression of distrust that happens with Bran and Mira. We don't get Tyrion blurting out like, what are you up to? I don't fucking trust you. You tell me, and you tell me right now. We don't get that from Tyrion because he understands that that's not the move in this particular situation. But the kids don't have that yet, So they're just all loud with their shit.
Indeed. Well, and there's more of them than there are of Cold Hands too, I think, which is part of it probably. Tyrion's alone.
Right. They are probably under the misapprehension that they could like go toe to toe, but they really can't. They can't. Jojen can't stand up. Brandon can't stand up. Fucking Hodor is not fighting nobody for real. It's just Mira and her spear. So,
Yeah, you're right about that. All right. Well, let me just get our new patrons' names up and we'll talk about that for a little bit here. New patron. Hold on. I gotta find the old yay, new patrons. Forgive me guys. I need to be more prepared here, but the end of the chapter sort of snuck up on me because I forgot how, I won't say it's like abrupt exactly, but you don't really progress in my head. You have a traveling chapter and the chapter ends with you reaching another moment, another place on the, like they reach an inn that they stay in or something like that. And that is not how this goes. So here we go. All right. New patrons. We have got Jamie Giacomi and Regis. Woo!
Welcome.
Welcome to all of you delightful new patrons and old patrons and all patrons. If you're interested in becoming one, you can go to patreon.com/unspoiled. You can follow for free and just see the updates about, events that we're doing and stuff. I had an impromptu live with Miles covering the Hunger Games because Rashawn couldn't record last week. So I recorded with Miles because he is also unspoiled and just like reading along with us. And it's really fun because then I got to record on the same chapters with Rashawn and kind of compare and contrast our takeaways. But yeah, just go and support us if you can. It really means a lot. I give a portion of the money to Rashawn, and that helps her pay her mom's rent.
It does.
So it's really important to her. It helps me pay for the unbelievable amount of like things that I have to keep running in order to keep the show going. You guys, it's wild. I just discount the expenses, but once I add them up, it's so much more than I think it is. You know what happens? I get into that place that, well, you didn't watch Schitt's Creek. There's an episode of Schitt's Creek where the David character has decided that by being able to write off something, it means that it's free. And I definitely get into that headspace where I'm like, well, this is a work expense. And so it's not anything, right? No, that's not how that goes, babes. It's not reality. So yeah, patreon.com/unspoiled. And you can follow us on all of the various things, but I really wouldn't recommend it because social media is not useful anymore. It's a good time. You can go and just like, observe, consume. But if you're looking for like information, it's not awesome. So I'm continuing to post there, but following as a free patron is really the best place to get info on the show. So that's what I recommend nowadays. I'm glad they added that option. And of course, there's the Spoil Me, which I am so, you guys, there are so many great things that I've been commissioned to cover, and it has been so much fun. And I just am wrapping up on the live action One Piece, which was so good. It was so good. And I'm so excited that there's a second season. And I'm so sad because I just watched the last episode last night and I'm like, no, it was only 8 episodes. Not enough. Not even close to enough. So, yeah, I covered that. So if you're interested in hearing me talk about either the anime, I am up to like episode 435, I think, for the anime. But I also cover the live action. So you can check that out too. And also covered Heartstopper. Wrapped up that first season pretty recently. It was adorable.
It was good. I really enjoyed it. It was very, very sweet.
What a feel good show, you guys. If you're looking for something that's like really queer, really cute, and like romantic in a way that the leads have so much chemistry, that is the thing. And like, there's occasional difficulties. There's conflict. It's not a conflict free thing, but it isn't like trauma. It doesn't feel like trauma heavy, like some queer content can really focus on. So just highly recommend. Good times. And I think that's it. So thank you guys again. Love you so much. Appreciate you all. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.